Green is fine.
Okay, I think we're live now. Let's wait maybe a few more seconds for people to join, and then we get started. So the topic of today is going to be about cyber insurances and whether they are like good in protecting businesses or they are making more harm by making us lazy and just not implementing anything because we are covered by the insurance. So yeah, let's get started. As always, I have Vincent with me today. Um, Vincent is a cybersecurity consultant originally from Netherlands, living in Copenhagen. He's working mostly in the GRC part of the cybersecurity, and my name is Andrei. I'm a cybersecurity consultant as well, but focusing on the technical sides, the pen testing and so on. So yeah, just to cut it short, Vincent, what is your opinion about cyber insurances? How do you see them?
Oof. Let's make a very bold statement. I think, in generally speaking, they are kind of useless, and they bring you the wrong way of security, the wrong way to think about security.
The wrong way to see security. Can
Yeah.
you explain a bit more on that wrong part?
Now, what I do see is, we had some clients, and they came to us, especially when I was still working for a managed security service providers. They clients came to us and they're like, "Yeah, we took insurance. We bought insurance, and now they want us to comply to the SIS standard." That was a very common one, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to have these controls in place so we can do insurance, so we can get our money for insurance. And the reason I say it's wrong is because you know it's it's good that they start doing something. That's nice, like
Mm-hmm.
really hands off that they start actually looking at the sys controls. But it becomes this checklist thing, and instead of being a checklist thing that is audited and nice like the ISO or something like that, it's
Yes.
just a technical checklist, and then without all the requirements of real auditing, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it became a checklist mentality. Oh yeah, we have all these things enabled. Check, check, check. So now we get our insurance, and then you would say, okay, now we are protected and we are insured, but we can already know that once you actually cyber attack hit, you most likely get absolutely nothing from your insurance.
Yeah. And that was half of the topic, right, of today's discussion. Like, is it actually protecting businesses or is it just making them more lazy and give you this false sense of security? And when you say like they get nothing out of it, personally, I know, for example, third parties attacks that happen, for example, supply chain, those would not be covered. Or, for example, if they consider the attack has come from a state-sponsored actor, they might consider not giving you the insurance because they see it as a way too big threat to be covered by that insurance. So, what are the main areas that you think should be covered but they are not covered by those insurances?
Now let's start with what is mostly not covered, because that's a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting one. Now, one actually before what's not covered and not covered is a big part of the insurance is also the fact that you don't get the money instantly in most cases, right? So it's a cash flow
Mm-hmm.
issue. So even if you wanna, rebuild your systems and rebuild all your infrastructure, you can't, because you don't get your insurance often maybe a year later after all the auditing and stuff has been conducted. So as a business, you even need to need to stay alive for in that 1 year where you have extra cost of rebuilding everything. Maybe you paid or not paid ransomware.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, So you can,
So,
as a business, you can already struggle really hard for 1 year because you just run out of cash flow,
so for
right?
me, it sounds like a very risky bet to take because you pay like the insurance, like the costs of the insurance. You might end up paying the ransom, and then you have to wait like maybe for 1 year for the auditing to happen until you get the money from the insurance back, if you get them, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the way I see it, it's a very risky thing to like go fully into the insurance part and not invest at all in your security.
Yeah, I mean that is already really risky. And then the part is like, what do they actually cover? Because what
Mm-hmm.
they cover is also very limited. Very often, is because they generally only cover things that directly hit the business. So that mean cost of um, you know building the systems up again. Maybe you'll get a little bit of revenue loss during a certain period, cost back. But one of the
Mm-hmm.
things you definitely don't get any money for is in that period you had the ransomware. You could have grown your company. You could have increased it 10%, 20%, did some innovation. Got new customers. That's all not covered.
So you mean the ongoing costs of the insurance are the ones that might keep back the company from growing faster.
Now it's the like if you take insurance and then have the mindset, hey, I'm gonna do nothing else because that's a
Mm-hmm.
checkbox, then you will be in for surprise because you will not be able to grow your company. The hit will be way bigger than you expected it.
Mm-hmm.
If you take insurance as an additional thing, but you're really invested in cybersecurity in general, or you at least take it seriously, and you know what the gaps are of your insurance, then I think you're fine, right?
I
Then you
see.
just
I
took
see.
you're like, yeah, it will cost me this much to rebuild my systems. The insurance cost of this, the insurance cost me X amount per month, so this most likely pays out,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right?
So we should. So what you say is we should see the cyber insurance just as one part of the whole cyber protection ecosystem, right? Instead of just going full in with the cyber insurance and ignoring everything else because it's the easiest thing to do. You just pay for something and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, and that's often the mindset that you get really quickly, right? Is
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you pay for your insurance and then you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything. It's like in your house, it's like, yeah, you can pay for your house insurance. In the case of a fire, you can be protected against your goods.
mm-hmm.
But first of all, you're limited protected, and if you don't do anything to prevent any fires, you know, you will still be in for a very bad surprise. It's better to also do something about preventing your house from catching on fire because you get all these costs that insurance just won't cover.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Just
Uh,
another question that popped into my mind, like, is there like compare like small businesses with very large enterprises? Do you see like is it better for small businesses to focus more on the insurance part while for big enterprises to focus on the actual security? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there a business that fits better the cyber insurance side and another that fits better the actual protections?
um, I don't really think it's worth it for small companies.
You think is not worth it?
No, I don't really think so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mostly because the monthly cost is just too extreme.
Mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm.
also due to a lot of insurance providers, they don't really want to burn themselves on cyber anymore. I even knew of some big insurance companies in the Netherlands that just said, yeah, we're not going to do any cybersecurity insurance anymore because it's just not profitable. We either need to
Okay.
make it too high, the insurance, or and nobody pays it, or it's just not profitable at all. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
for small companies, I think it's even I don't think it's worth it at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
For
So
bigger companies, it becomes more interesting actually. But then you need to have the right mindset. It's like if you're a big company that, for example, if you're a big company with a lot of capital, then most likely insurance doesn't really make a lot of sense because you have the cash flow and the capital to sustain it, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you're a company that is very tight on the capital, then might use the insurance to to cover your ass in the case of extreme cash flow. You most likely still need maybe to get a loan from the bank, but if the bank knows that you're most likely going to get insurance back, then maybe they will be more. They will help you
Mm-hmm,
with your cash flow. Um, but yeah, for big companies, I would say it makes more sense. There are maybe some. It also depends because if you go to directly to insurance companies, it's very hard. There are now some alternatives where you you take on cybersecurity services from a party and they offer insurance on top. It's more mid-sized enterprise. It's not small, it's mid, so 200
Mm-hmm.
people plus. That might be more worth it.
So is this like a added feature on top of a service that they provide, right? And it's like more like a guarantee, like the service that they provide, it's so secure that if it breaks, they are going to cover the costs for it.
Now, what the thing is, like what most insurance companies struggle with is they don't have any control over your organization. So they don't know if you, for example, implemented MFA or you implemented, you
Mm-hmm.
are shoving your data online. They don't know. They have no clue what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing. So what they do is to a lot of these insurance companies are like, okay, then we need to set down some controls.
Mm-hmm.
And preferably we need as an insurance company to audit those controls so we know we're actually doing them. But for small companies, it's almost not worth it to bring an auditor and do the whole auditing process. But with these services, they provide you security service, so they know that you have some controls already in place.
Mm-hmm.
And if they
Mm-hmm.
do, let's say, security monitoring, they can even see how much risk you're running because they
Right.
can see the
Right.
data itself.
So you say they feel more in control because they are the ones who implement the security features, and
Yeah,
they can also have visibility in what is going to happen. But then it, you present this feature as cyber insurance, but again, it's not just cyber insurance on its own. It's tightly connected with another service that they provide that actually implements security. So uh,
yeah, it makes better
mhm,
because they could, for example, see, hey, um, let's say they have 20 customers, then they can say, okay, we have this specific customers has more alerts, more issues, more admin abuse, more data transfer than all the other customers. So
mhm.
these are at higher risk, and we might need to control them a little bit more or to increase their insurance payout to make it worth it. So they
Mhm,
have
mhm.
real control over the chain of to make insurance worth it. But normal insurance companies don't have that kind of control. They don't
Yes.
have the same kind of data either.
So, so to some extent, it's a very risky business for the insurance company to offer insurance to a company where they don't have any kind of visibility. They just have to trust their client that they will do what they say they do, and then they will give the insurance when something bad happens.
Yeah, it's because when it comes to fire, then let's say with even with fire insurance, right? They say you need at least need a fire alarm installed, but that's still
Hmm.
very simple, and they can check afterwards that you have your fire alarm installed. And if you
Hmm.
didn't, then they're like, yeah, you kind of messed up there, and you're not getting our insurance. But when it comes to cyber and we're talking about awareness, testing of systems, it becomes so complex that for most insurance companies, if they want to get that kind of control, the it will cost them too much because they cannot just
Hmm.
ask, "Hey, install your fire alarm." They have to really audit your systems to make sure that's actually there, and there's no other
Yeah.
way to do it.
But to some extent, it sounds like if you want to get a cyber insurance, you actually have to do the work. You cannot just simply get it, or you get it, but it is going to be so expensive that it's not really worth it. So the way you present it to some extent is like the cyber insurance can actually push companies into implementing better controls. Is it?
I can push them in some ways. I mean, there are some stubborn companies that still think old school and they're like, "Yeah, we really need an insurance," and then the insurance demands them to actually, to make some work of cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, it's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's more than nothing. But apart from that, is if too much companies get this insurance mindset and they don't get security strategy first mindset, they will be in for a surprise. I
Why
think
do you think
insurance.
companies why do you think companies just have this mindset of like, okay, we're just going to get the insurance and then move on, like we don't care anymore, this is all we are going to do about it?
I mean, it
Is it
makes sense.
like Is it like a lack of awareness? Is it lack of understanding how cybersecurity works? Is it budget? Is it like decisions of the board? Why do you think companies just choose to go all in into the insurance part and then ignore all the other things?
Now, first of all, insurance is often very expensive. So very often,
Mm-hmm.
if they go into insurance, then you're gonna lack out on a lot of other controls, which is kind of
Mm-hmm.
funny, right? Like you get insurance to get some more control, but the cost of it is so much that you could have implemented so many cybersecurity controls in the same time instead of
Mm-hmm.
this insurance. Um, Another thing is just mindset. A lot of people, especially on the board level, they still have the mindset of with most things, like all the risks that we have, we can insure against, we will insure against.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's also easy to explain to stakeholders because you can say, look, you don't have to be scared because we insured.
Okay, that's actually a pretty good point. Like, is like so not technical and such a like insurance is a topic that a lot of people know how it works. So when you explain to the board that we have cyber insurance, it will be very easy for them to understand compared to telling them we are going to install this many firewalls on these systems and so on. You know, like
Yeah, completely.
communicating with the board and making them take that decision is much more easier.
Completely.
To
It's super
Yeah.
easy because now you could say, let's say I'm a manager in an organization and I'm the one pushing for insurance. Then instead of having a vague answer like, yeah, we kind of know, we have these controls in place, we have these
Mhm.
risks, and we think we kind of covered, and I think we're doing a good job, and this is our strategy, etc. Instead, now they could just say, hey, look, we have insurance, so we're covered. Don't worry about it. When the
Mhm.
insurance hits and you actually need to use it, that IT manager might already be gone, or he could say, yeah, look, I really tried. I insured this ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Don't fire me for it. I did all we could, and I didn't know that somewhere in the rules it said we didn't get covered.
I see. I see. So it sounds like the easiest thing that you can do just to get uh, rid of the cyber security problems and then move on with other things in your organization.
Yeah, it's one of the mindset, of course, which is pretty well documented, is especially in large enterprises that managers by default are very risk averse, but not risk averse in the sense of the company. They are very risk averse in the sense of their own position and their own, uh,
Hmm.
you know, yeah, mostly in sense of their own position. So they will do anything to have a good story to protect their own positions against the least amount of effort possible.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Because if you take the risks, or you make it vague, or you don't have a good excuse, then you're more likely to be fired. Let me put it like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Uh, um, what about some like what is your like real world experience with cyber insurances? Have you had experience with dealing with negotiating the terms and conditions? Have you had to look through like what the agreement looks like and what is covered, what is not, or what was
Yeah,
your experience so far?
most of my experience was more with customers that came to me that have insurance
Hmm.
and their mindset related to the insurance itself. Of course, I knew quite a bit of people, that are in the insurance world, because cybersecurity is a big thing for big insurance companies.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and there you see more the mindset, we have difficulty to figure out if insurance cyber in the general is even worth it because the damage is all
Hmm.
too big.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we have no control over it, and it's almost impossible to calculate how much risk we have. So we have no way of calculating how much companies should pay for insurance, which makes the whole mess.
Do you think
Um,
it's a dying business in some sense, like just by itself, the cyber insurance, and then maybe just moving it more towards a feature on top of other services could be an option.
yeah, I see some companies do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 2 years ago, I would have said that cyber insurance in general, especially in the Benelux area, was more of a dying thing because companies less and less wanted to burn themselves on that topic. I'm not really sure if that's still the case, honestly. It might be that new constructions and with monitoring and new partnerships enable that insurance is more of a thing right now. That said, I have less customers that come to me for the fact that they have insurance.
Okay.
So
So even
three,
if it
four
is
years
a
ago, it was pretty common that a customer would come to me, "Hey, we have insurance with these requirements." I haven't heard that story in 2 years. Now that doesn't mean it's not the case, right? Maybe I just don't get it anymore. The question,
I see.
but
So, but from what you say, it sounds like in the past maybe companies were willing to buy this cyber insurance by their own, and meanwhile, as time passed, more and more companies are buying it just because it is a requirement to be compliant with some standards, right?
I think the biggest thing in cybersecurity insurance is mostly that companies are becoming a little bit more aware. They know now how digital the world is, um, and they know what they need to do with regard to cybersecurity. And we have the laws, like for example, in Europe, you can have all the cyber insurance you want, but you still need to comply very soon to NIS 2. And insurance is not part of NIS 2. So if you want it or not, you need to improve your cybersecurity practices.
I see.
So I think that creates some awareness with companies that it's not just about insurance anymore. Well, before that period where laws and regulations and compliance were not really a thing, people would, I think companies just tended to lean more towards insurance. So yeah, very interesting. What do you think
So
from your technical perspective? Should we insure
from a
companies?
very technical perspective, like as a pen tester, I would say it gives a very false sense of security. Like you have this feeling that whatever it happens, we are going to be covered, and then at some point, if you don't do anything, someone will find a breach in your infrastructure and get to exploit it. And it's not just about the costs that they are going to do right away because of the breach, but it's also the long-term brand damage. Like this is one of the things that a cyber insurance cannot do anything about it. Like they can, in the best case, they can cover all the costs for the breach that happened, but the media and the press are still going to write about your breach, right? And the customers that you have will still remember that you have been compromised at some point. So that no one is going to say, yeah, but they had a cyber insurance. Cool, they got their money, but the attackers also got our data. So it's definitely like it cannot be by itself the cyber insurance, at
It's
least for
also
the technical side.
an interesting one is, we talked a lot about money and we talked about a lot about data and whatever. But one of the biggest thing with cyber security in general, and especially if you lean only on insurance, like if you insurance is just part of your strategy, it's different. But if you lean only on insurance, the biggest part is what insurance definitely doesn't cover is the stress that you will cause on the people in the organization. Because once ransomware hits, it's not even the money that's lost; it's the whole organization is in one complete chaos, and will often result in burnout, will result in screaming, it will result in anger. The whole culture is completely on its head for at least a couple of years. You really get scarred as a company, and that is, I think that's even more painful than ever. That if you rely only on insurance and you don't do anything else, then I would rather have spent some money on your controls just to prevent your colleagues and your employees from ever having to deal with something like this.
So if you love your company and your colleagues at work, spend also some of those money on actual security controls, not just the insurance itself.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least some crisis management, or that once it hit, that you don't have you know you don't not the whole company results into burnout and aggressiveness and anger and um, extra work hours, which also not only hits your employees but also the families of all the employees, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
these guys will work till the end of days. They will be angry. They will be screamed at because the business needs to run, and the family and the kids, they can, yeah, they will
I think
get it also.
that's a good point that you are bringing right there, because as businesses you tend to focus a lot on the numbers and the profits at the end of the year, and
Yeah,
like what is the minimum risk that we can take and how much can we invest into this, and be very like focused on the Excel sheet in front of you just to make sure you have more profits than the previous year. But even if like you are covered by the insurance and the profit is still growing the next year, you still have all these things that will affect you in the long run, which, as you said, is like burnout of the people, stress, brand damage, and all those things. So maybe you don't see it in the first year or the second year, because the insurance is going to cover it with the money, but in the long term you are going to see the effects.
yeah, guaranteed. And this will not. The biggest one is this will just also just limit yourself to grow as a company. So it's better to reduce damage, mitigate the risk. I mean, you're not gonna prevent 100% against the risk anyway, but at least, um, yeah, I would say instead of spending a ridiculous amount of insurance, try to spend it on controls and methods to reduce the risk or at least reduce the impact of the risk. Um, I think that's way better. If you only, if insurance is part of a really big cybersecurity plan already, go ahead. That's fine,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's the mindset, right?
Exactly. So don't go full in with all your cyber protection just on the insurance. And if you have insurance as an option in an already proposed plan, that could be an option. But going full in into that is not really something that's going to benefit you in the long term.
Exactly.
Mm.
But I think we are wrapping up very well. We
Yeah.
made a good summary already, I would say, or you did.
It was a pleasure again talking with you, Vincent. And yeah, I don't know if we have any more questions in the chat, but we are going to upload the session on the YouTube channel so people can see the recording. And we are probably going to have another session in about 2 weeks. We're not sure about what's the next topic, but just follow us on LinkedIn, and we're going to post it very soon.
Yeah, we have no questions, by the way, which can only
Mhm.
mean one thing: everybody agrees with us. So
Great conclusion, Vincent. Great conclusion.
let's
Cool.
end on that.
Thanks again, and have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.